Alright, I am making a PupLoaf, or a doggy loaf. So I thought I'd go ahead and video it. Everybody can kind of follow along. Apologize in advance for how dirty my house is. Alright, so I'm going to get a couple of different pans out. So number one, and I'm going to say this again, and I'm going to put it at the bottom of the video, and it's going to be in there 100 times. This is not a balanced meal. This is not balanced by any means. I make these PupLoafs, and usually once or twice a week, I will give them just this loaf, basically a meatloaf that I'm going to make. I will give them that, but they're still getting balanced food. So they might have one day of unbalanced and have just the PupLoaf, but it is not every day. This is not balanced by any stretch of the imagination. So let me get all of our stuff out. All right, so I've got ground turkey and I've got some ground beef. This ground beef, let's see, how much is this? 5 pounds. So it's 5 pounds of ground beef, and I think this is a 3-pounder. Yeah, 3-pounder of turkey. I am not going to use probably all of it. I don't measure anything. I just kind of see how it goes. So there's not a lot of measuring taking place. Now, usually I do put eggs in here, and usually I will grind up the eggshells. I'm trying to figure out a way I can grind them. I don't have my mortar and pestle. I could probably grind them in my blender. It's gonna be super loud, but we could do that. Okay, so first, let's put our meat in. I know I want to use this whole thing of turkey. So Allie, for whatever reason, hates raw poultry. Hates it. Will not eat it. Hates the texture, hates the whole kit and caboodle. She hates it. So if I cook it, she's absolutely fine with it. So we're just probably not gonna put this whole thing hamburger in. Probably just 3/4 of it. So we're just gonna squeeze some into there. And then we'll just kind of see how we go. And we'll use more if we need to. I do get these. They're already riced. Again, I do not have a food processor. So you can much cheaper to just go get some frozen veggies if you want, or fresh and add them in here. But I do not have any sort of food processor. So I get the riced veggies. This is sweet potato and cauliflower. You can add any kind of veggies in here. Kale, squash is always good. I love to add squash. Add pumpkin is fantastic. Any of that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna use my hands because it's just easier. So I'm just kind of gonna mix the meat in. Like I said, this is hamburger and turkey. It's lean hamburger. I cook a lot of my dog's food anymore. I've had some bad experiences with raw. I've been doing a lot of research into raw food, talking to a lot of people, and I just don't feel as comfortable as I once did feeding raw. So I do cook, and I really like this meatloaf. Number one, I can use this meatloaf like when I'm gone. A really cool thing you can do with it is put it in muffin tins. I'm going to use these big casserole dishes, lasagna pans, and I just cut it in squares. It's a literal meatloaf. But you can use muffin tins and make like little serving size muffins of this stuff. There. Alright, so I am going to use the last of my Dr. Harvey's. You can also, if you don't want to use like this where I've gotten veggies, you can just use Honest Kitchen. I use Honest Kitchen pretty regularly with this mix. Instead of adding any of the veggies in, you can just add the Honest Kitchen. And then if you do it in the right ratios, which go follow Judy Morgan. She actually has a whole recipe for a PupLoaf. I'll link it down below. And it's balanced. And she has a recipe that includes Honest Kitchen and one that includes adding your own veggies and everything. I am going to put the last of my Dr. Harvey's. I've only got just a little bit left. I'm just going to go ahead and put it in here. If I had more, I could make this a balanced meal. And I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have rehydrated it first. Lesson learned, children. I definitely should have rehydrated this. I did not think about that as I just dumped it in. So what we're gonna do, okay, so I just add a little water. It's not gonna really rehydrate it, so future note, rehydrate your mix. I just was not thinking, I was thinking about adding veggies to it. Not that it needs to be rehydrated. I'm not worried about it as far as the rehydration because it's gonna go in the oven and all the juices and all the nummies are all gonna rehydrate it. So I'm not worried about the rehydrate. So I guess you could add it dry if you wanted to, as long as you're adding something in there that's gonna help it hydrate. Over on the stove, we have, this is rice, brown rice, and oats cooking. I made quite a bit. Woo! I made quite a bit. So more than likely, I will be using this. I've got some chicken hearts and some gizzards I was going to feed tonight. So I will probably give them some rice and oatmeal with it because that'll be a little bit too much for one loaf. Too much rice for one oats. So we're going to put in our cauliflower and sweet potato. I'll probably add, I got 3 bags of it. More than likely, I'll only use 2. Again, I'll probably use the 3rd bag later tonight. And this is all going to get cooked in the oven. Ooh. Oh, freebies. There you go, guys. Again, I'm going to use my hands because it's just easier. It's cold as all get out, but by God, it's just a little bit easier to use your hands if you don't mind touching raw meat, which doesn't bother me. Okay. I like to mix each ingredient as we go so we can kind of get it all incorporated. I didn't pick up any liver this time, but you can definitely pick up some liver and add that in here as well. It's always a good addition to add in. There we go. Okay, I'm going to leave my hands gross, and we're going to add eggs. I'm not adding the shell. There's calcium in the Dr. Harvey's mix, and I'm also going to be adding sardines. Again, if you followed Judy Morgan's recipe, there's a recipe that includes Honest Kitchen, and there's one that doesn't, and the one that doesn't, she uses eggshells for calcium. So we're adding a bunch of eggs in here. Let's see, I took 4 out this morning, so I'm probably adding in, let's see, I had those 2, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, probably about 8 eggs. I usually add a whole carton. Depending on how this looks, I might go get another couple out of my fridge. I like to add a whole carton of eggs. And if some of the eggshell gets in here, I'm not worried about it. We are also going to add sardines. I'm going to add at least 4 cans, but again, I might add more depending on how this looks. And I get the sardines in water. They've got bones and everything in them, so again, calcium in there. This is also adding some vitamin D, as well as good old fish is always good to have in there. And we are cooking it. I am sure you can make this exact same PupLoaf. Cook your veggies in order for the dogs to digest them. They need to be pureed or cooked. So you could cook your veggies if you're adding grains like I am, which you do not have to. You can make this raw. Quite easily do a raw version of this. Yeah. This is gross. Here we are, mixing our sardines and our eggs. Oh God, some of it flew that way. Ew. Dogs are happy, but ew. Make sure our stuff's not boiling. If you do add eggshells, you want to have them ground up. So you can use a blender or a food processor if you need to add the eggshells for calcium. So gross. Getting all grossly mixed up. Oh yeah. I will probably add another can of sardines. I think we're looking okay on eggs though. All right, my hands are frozen. All right, gross. Rice and oats have to cook, and they need to be cooked. Like, the rice needs to be squishy soft. Oats are squishy soft. You want everything to be very squishy soft. Again, I'm cooking mine, so if my rice comes out and it's still a little firm, I'm not worried about it because it's going in the oven. So I won't get too too crazy upset about it if it's not, you know, super soft. Yeah, this is what it looks like. Right now, that's 2 bags of the rice veggies, some Dr. Harvey's. There was probably maybe a half a cup of Dr. Harvey's left in that bag, maybe 3/4. I was still trying to debate if I want to add my extra bit of hamburger we got left, or call it good. We're probably okay to call it good. I might add some more sardines. Like I said, I don't measure this stuff exactly. I just get it to the look. When you're trying to create a balanced meal, you need to make sure and measure everything out, and you know what everything is. I highly recommend looking up Judy Morgan's PupLoaf. I use her Honest Kitchen one quite frequently. My dogs actually have eaten that full time. For probably, oh geez, probably a month they ate that full time. Add another can of sardines. Can never go wrong with sardines. We're gonna add some more. Now it's just a matter of waiting for our rice and oatmeal. I'm gonna start preheating that oven. Start getting it ready to go. This is great for traveling. If you have an RV, you can put it in nice little, like I said, you can do it with the muffin tins. So you can really have like nice, cute little serving sizes, depending on the size of your dog. Like all my dogs, the size muffin tins I have, they get two muffins a day, basically. Wally gets more like 3. But again, my dogs are all going to be a little bit different than yours. Or like what I'm doing today is just making lasagna pans of it. And then I just cut, you know, pieces. Okay, so now we wait for our rice and oats, and then we'll get that added. We're going to add our rice and oatmeal now. And I just kind of, we're just going to add it in, mix, add it in. You want to have more, at least I do. I want to have more meat than grains and veggies. So I don't want to add too much in and then have it overpower the meat. Like I said, there's a lot. I don't know if the camera's going to show, but there's I have a lot of rice and oats. I made way too much. So they'll be getting some for a couple days. Because what I will do with this is I will bake it all up. Oh, I need to start the oven. Dogs do fine on grains. I like using grains with my dogs, and I know that stirs up a bunch of controversy, but I do not feel that grains are evil. I've talked with many canine nutritionalists. I've done my own study. I don't think, unless your dog has an honest grain allergy, they provide a lot of nutrients, a lot of vitamins, a lot of minerals for my dogs, and I see a difference, especially for my dogs doing agility. I see a huge difference in my dogs when they are fed a grain-free diet or a traditional raw diet that doesn't have any grains, versus when I do include grains in their diet. So like I said, you could take this right now and just use this as a raw mix. You can make meatballs. I used to do that all the time when I fed raw, is make meatballs, and then you can wrap them in like a little bit of cling wrap or whatever and freeze them. And then you have little frozen meatballs. You can do that super easy. You can, you know, freeze this into muffin tins, same as what we're gonna do when we bake it, and then you have little individual portions, or you can just have this big batch of raw food. It's all mixed and ready to go. You do always have to puree or cook your veggies, and you definitely have to cook your grains. Even when you're feeding raw, they all have to be cooked. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I actually think I'm gonna add, I don't know, that looks pretty good. Okay, so then I'm gonna let this rice come over here and sit and cool. That's what they get for dinner tonight, is that. And we're gonna go ahead and start filling pans while the oven preheats. So I just grease them just a little bit. You'll thank yourself for that. Make sure and grease them. Otherwise, it's hard to get out of the pans. And I'm just filling this pan. Again, I can't see my camera, so I don't know how well it's showing. I'm just filling this pan. This is a toss, throwaway, one-time use thing. Lasagna pan that I picked up at the store today. And just gonna mush all that in. I don't get the opportunity to feed a lot of turkey to my dogs, so this is one way I can get turkey into them. Mainly because, like I said, Allie does not like raw poultry of any kind. She's fine with it cooked. But any sort of raw, she will not eat, period. So, this is one way I can get her, make sure and get poultry into her. I try not to use, whenever I do these doggy meatloafs, I very rarely use chicken, because their base diet is Honest Kitchen is kind of the base that I use, and I can feed chicken through that. And chicken's a pretty hot food as far as on a traditional Chinese medicine scale. It's a pretty warm food, and I think just in general, dogs get, us too, get a lot of chicken in our diets. So I like to feed turkey when possible. I also feed a lot of fish. I do not feed any fish raw. So when I'm doing this, I generally like to use turkey because I can cook it all up and she's fine with it. You can use ground chicken. This was beef and turkey, which I really like using. Okay, so this is going to do 3 pans. Just like that. We have little PupLoafs. So we're waiting on the oven, so in my next shot will show me taking all this out of the oven. You guys get the easy part because you just get to fast forward through all this. But basically I'm going to put them in the oven at 350 degrees for about 40 minutes. I want it to still be juicy on the inside. You don't want it like cooked, like overcooked and bleh. Number one, I think the dogs like it better when it's not overcooked. And a lot, like this little guy here, because it's thinner, it's going to probably come out a little sooner than like this big lasagna pan here. That one's really thick. So it all kind of depends too on the thickness of all your pans. Okay, so we're in the oven. Looking pretty good. See how it's still kind of juicy? It's all cooked all the way through. And it's still bubbly and juicy. I just turned the oven off. And I'm just going to leave them in there to cool. And they'll keep kind of cooking, but not overcook. So here are the meatloaves out of the oven. I will go ahead and kind of cut a little portion. You can see it's still juicy, which is what we want. There's still juice in there. It's still warm. But I'll show it on the dog's plate also. But we don't want it overcooked and dry. You want it to still kind of have a nice juice to it, but everything is cooked. So this is the meatloaf. It's all broken up here. This is it in little squares. So this is what everybody's dinner is going to be. I feed twice a day, and sometimes I also do lunch. So this is not a full meal. And again, this is not a balanced meal. They're just getting little meatloaf for dinner. I break it up so they don't try to eat it all in one big glob. But as you can see, everything's cooked. Yep, everything's all cooked, but still kind of juicy and meaty.